Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, August 18th, 2025. Today is day 682. An update of the news, a bit from over the weekend, but the last 24 hours, particularly as it relates to Gaza and the broader Middle East. There are reports from the Gaza Strip that Israeli Defense Forces tanks are now entering the Al-Sabra neighborhood. The multiple sources have reported this. Israeli tanks are entering that area, which is in central Gaza City. Saudi news and local media news outlets in the western part of the city described the movement as a sudden entry of military vehicles. There are reports indicating that these are the areas surrounding the UNRWA school and clinic at Al-Sabra, and that it's now been put under siege. The IDF has not yet confirmed this. I'm recording this in the early afternoon East Coast time on Monday, but it sounds like the invasion of Gaza City has officially begun. Prime Minister Netanyahu's visited the IDF's Gaza division, saying that Hamas is under, quote, atomic pressure, and signaling that Israel is preparing to escalate those operations in order to seize Gaza City. And, the stated claim is to release the hostages. The IDF chief Eyal Zamir has approved the operational plans. That happened yesterday, where the operational plans were approved. In the last 24 hours, at least 60 people were killed in the Gaza Strip, 27 of them killed while they were seeking aid. There were 344 wounded by Israeli fire in the past 24 hours, including 5 additional people who died of malnutrition and hunger. 2 of the 5 who died of hunger were children. The Gaza Health Ministry reported those numbers, saying that 27 of the dead and 281 of those wounded were aid seekers. These are reports from those arriving at hospitals for humanitarian assistance, such as food, medical care, or shelter. The total number of those killed now while seeking aid in Gaza is 1,965 people, and the total death toll in Gaza is at least 62,004 people killed, with more than 150,000 injured since October 7th of 2023. All the while, those who remain in Gaza City are bracing to flee ahead of what's believed to be the incoming Israeli assault. Families from Gaza City will move west or south ahead of the Israeli ground offensive. As you know, this is the multiple. How many times have these families already been displaced? Most of these people were displaced to the south of the Gaza Strip and then moved back to the north. But the area is still under nearly constant bombardment. So moving right now is not possible. Israel's plans to seize Gaza City have sparked alarm internationally and domestically within Israel, of course, within the United States as well, with tens of thousands of Israelis protesting for a ceasefire and calling for the release of the remaining hostages. I'll give more updates about those protests in a minute. It is said that Hamas and Palestinian factions have agreed to a mediated ceasefire proposal that was put forward by Egypt and Qatar. It's said that Hamas and Palestinian factions accepted the ceasefire proposal. This would include partial IDF withdrawal from the north and east of Gaza, a prisoner exchange, and immediate delivery of humanitarian aid. The plan currently would call for the IDF to withdraw from 1,000 meters from northern and eastern Gaza. This would include Shujaiya and Beit Lahia. This would include a prisoner exchange with 10 living hostages to be returned in exchange for 140 Palestinian prisoners. Either those would be serving life sentences, and 60 of them would be serving over 15 years. This agreement provides for adjustments to military deployment in the north and east and the immediate delivery of large-scale humanitarian aid once the deal would take effect. This would include fuel, water, electricity, hospital and bakery rehabilitation, and equipment for debris removal. The UN, Red Crescent, and other international organizations would coordinate distribution. Under the proposal, the Rafah crossing with Egypt would reopen in both directions, and an agreement on the exchange remains to be stipulated for the deceased Israeli bodies, in addition to 10 Palestinian bodies. Sources have emphasized that this deal is being carefully coordinated, that it follows arrangements that were outlined last in January 2025, and that it would mark a significant step forward in terms of easing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Now, according to current reports, there is no agreement from Israel on this. It's only the Palestinian factions who've agreed. Israel Katz, who's the Minister of Defense in Israel, said that Hamas will discuss the hostage deal only because of the threat for the invasion into Gaza City. And so the current conversation about a ceasefire negotiation is justifying the Israeli security establishment, but the Israeli leadership in their plans to invade Gaza City. He said defeating Gaza City will lead to Hamas's surrender, and noted that the focus on the city stems from it being the organization's military and political center, where its leadership and core infrastructure remain. You'll recall that the Israeli military previously had full control over North Gaza before it allowed the population to return several months ago. In the occupied West Bank, the U.S. has said they do not oppose Israel's government plans for a massive settlement construction in the E1 area that's east of Jerusalem. This is by Ma'al-Adamim and the other East Jerusalem settlements. This would sever the West Bank. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee said that the U.S. does not oppose this plan. In Israel, hundreds of thousands of Israelis participated over the weekend in some of the largest anti-war protests in months. These were organized by several different groups, including families of Israeli hostages. While the protests were ongoing, the IDF Chief of Staff Zamir, senior military commanders in Gaza, approved that plan that I just talked about for the new phase of the war and the taking over of Gaza City. The Hostage and Missing Families Forum announced a nationwide, quote, Israel stops again, end quote, protest for next Sunday, and they're still calling for the release of all 50 hostages held in Gaza, of whom it's believed maybe 20 are alive. Churches for Middle East Peace stands alongside of them in that call for a comprehensive permanent ceasefire, for the release of hostages, and for the release of prisoners that are held unjustly. Also, families of the 50 Gaza hostages have written a letter and are urging President Trump to act, saying that the world desperately needs leaders like you. Mr. President, may you achieve your goals of ending both wars and ending the suffering for Israelis and Palestinians alike. The world desperately needs leaders like you who can transform endless cycles of violence into hope. The letter calls on a deal of all deals, a comprehensive agreement that would bring the hostages home and stop the fighting. The families warned that escalating danger, every bomb that falls, every day this war continues, puts the living hostages at imminent risk of execution and threatens to make bodies of the deceased disappear forever. It also, this is my commentary, puts innocent Palestinian civilians at risk each and every day that the bombing of Gaza continues. In Lebanon, there were 3 people injured by an Israeli drone strike in the south of the state. And related to Syria, hundreds of people demonstrated in Saweda, Syria's southern city, in support of the Druze minority's self-determination. This happened over the weekend, according to activist media collectives. The protests were the largest since last month's deadly clashes. Related to international news, a group of between 30 and 50 critically ill and injured Palestinian children will travel to the United Kingdom for medical treatment from Gaza in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department announced over the weekend it has paused approvals for visitor visas for people from Gaza in order to conduct a full and thorough review of the process by which temporary medical visas were issued. The move holds a pathway for those who have sought medical care in the United States. It came after lobbying from the far-right activist Laura Loomer, who called the medical evacuation flights of children from Gaza a national security threat. Trump has said that hostages will return only once Hamas is destroyed. So this was on Truth Social. He said the remaining hostages in Gaza will be freed only once Hamas is confronted and destroyed. The sooner this takes place, the better the chances of success. Trump claimed credit for past hostage negotiations, saying, I was the one who negotiated and got hundreds of hostages freed and released into Israel and America. He also highlighted his record in international affairs, saying he was the one who ended 6 wars in just 6 months. I was the one who obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. Trump concluded his post with a call to take decisive action, saying, play to win or don't play at all. Thank you for your attention in this matter. In terms of updates about Christians in the Middle East, I just wanted to share an update about the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. They've updated their position on Gaza and Palestine following a church-wide assembly that happened in late July. where a memorial resolution was passed in response to the crisis in Gaza, the proposed reoccupation of Gaza City, and the expulsion of almost half of Gaza's population. In response to calls from church members for the memorial, the ELCA's presiding bishop issued a letter which was addressed to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and joint leadership of Congress, imploring an end to the genocide in Gaza. I would encourage you to take a look and read that letter. Finally, I wanted to let you know a story I heard recently about a Catholic priest, Father Nadino Capavilla. He's a Venetian priest who's well known for his commitment to human rights and peace. He was stopped upon arrival at the Tel Aviv airport, held for hours by Israeli authorities. In the end, he was denied entry into Israel and handed a deportation order that cited national security reasons. Father Nadino, according to things I've read, has long fought for the protection of the most vulnerable, especially children in conflict zones. He traveled to Israel with Pax Christi, a delegation taking a journey of dialogue for meeting with members of local communities. If such an episode had happened in Palestine or any other country against an Italian priest, how would the ministers around the world react? Would we have seen public condemnations and official demands for explanations, is a question that was posed. But when it comes to Israel, the world looks the other way. Even when priests are spat upon or humiliated in the streets of Jerusalem, the silence is deafening. The so-called only democracy in the Middle East should ensure freedom and respect, especially for such a man of peace. Yet once again, we witness an act that contradicts that narrative. So some of the Palestinian leaders were offering their full solidarity to Father Nadino Copavilla in his denial of entry to the Israeli state. That's an update of the last 24 hours as the week begins. Pray and work towards peace. Don't give up hope as we call for a comprehensive permanent ceasefire and an end to all violence. In the name of Christ, amen.